Everyone, and welcome to the April 30, 2012 PDC Board of Commissioners meeting. Emily, please call the roll.
Chair Andrews?
Here.
Commissioner Dixon?
Here.
Commissioner Molis? Absent. Commissioner Strauss? Absent. Commissioner Wilhoit?
Here. Thank you. And actually, we will be bringing Commissioner Molis online at 4:45. He will participate in the discussion on the education district, and we'll be stepping out of a dinner in Washington, D.C. to do so. So we're going to work real hard on being with him at 4:45. So commission reports. I wanted to start with a couple of giant thank yous and congratulations. Commissioner Wilhoit and Molis were reappointed to the PDC Commission a couple weeks ago. Smile, smile. And this will be the third term for both of them. They're both coming up on 6 years of service, and it's a lot of time and a lot of effort, but it's a great cause. But I really appreciate them being willing to stay on. I thought it was very important given the changes in the economy that we've had to deal with, the changes in our organization and staffing, the coming changes at City Council, and obviously a new mayor, that it would be best for the organization to maintain stability at the board level if possible. And both John and Charles have provided tremendous insight and help with particular communities as well as particular areas. So thank you so much for agreeing to sign up again.
Well, my pleasure.
And I wanted to congratulate Commissioner on, let's see, Career Achievement Award last week. Yes?
Yeah, that sounds crazy.
Well, I think what we're finding over the last few weeks is the rest of the world is figuring out how wonderful we already knew you were.
Well, thank you. That's really sweet. And it was a lot of fun for me. It was a great tribute, especially for my family, I think, because they like to see that I work hard and every now and then I get some acknowledgement for it. So thanks.
Well deserved. Well deserved.
Yes.
A couple of things that I participated in since our last meeting. We held a broker education event at Melvin Mark Companies. Had about 40 people attend, and it was focused around the kind of tools that we can provide for someone who wants to bring a business into town or wants to help a business grow. And we had 3 panelists, one organization that makes rain gear for bicyclists, who was wildly enthusiastic. I think he said he started looking in March, and by June, with our help, he had bought and moved into his new facility and expanded his sales quite dramatically.
That's Showers Pass. That's the name of the company. We needed to plug our company, so Showers Pass is the first company.
And second one was the Windows. The
Indo Windows.
Indo Windows, yeah. Who was a finalist for Angel Fund, but didn't get there, I saw. But a fantastic product. And then the last one was the acupuncture, community acupuncture.
Working class acupuncture.
Providing just 3 different sites now, a completely different model for providing the business, and actually providing full-time jobs for, I think it was 11 currently and up to 17 acupuncturists here shortly, which is really, really, really remarkable. I also got to testify on behalf of PDC on the Portland Plan, which was approved by City Council. And then the next day actually got to MC an event here that the Green Team did where we had a gentleman from CH2M Hill, Ozzie Gonzalez, who gave us a very inspirational speech that tied really, really well into the Portland Plan, in that he really understood the triple bottom line approach that we take, sustainability, job growth, social equity, and how it can be very, very difficult at times, but very, very rewarding, and they actually all help each one of the other pieces to move. So it was a terrific presentation, and it is online through YouTube. And I would highly recommend, if you've got a half an hour, that you take the time to see it. That's all I had. Charles?
Yeah, I don't have much other than to second your comments, congratulating Commissioner Dixon, very much deserving. I'm embarrassed to say that I've known her for a long time, and she was very, very young when I met her, which makes me a little older. So it's nice to see people grow up in the community and give back to the community, and she has definitely done that. Just sorry I wasn't able to attend the event, but congratulations once again. And to thank everyone here at the commission and my fellow commissioners and the city council for supporting me in another role as another term with PDC. And Sherry Andrews, you spoke about the commitment and the time and the contribution, but it truly is a reward to be able to work in a capacity where you have the ability to affect what goes on in the city that you know and love and where you work and live. And, some may say I don't always make the best decisions, but I always try to make the most informed decision. And hopefully the renewal for another term suggests that I might be doing some things that are working out in the best interest of Portland. But I really appreciate the opportunity to work with the staff here in the community, and it's been very rewarding for me, and I look forward to another term on the commission. So thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
Well, I just once again will say thank you for the tribute from you guys. That means a lot to me. And Executive Director Quinton left some really nice remarks this weekend as well. So I've just been on cloud 9 the whole weekend, and it's Monday now, so it's back to reality. But again, I'm pleased that Commissioner Wilhoit and Commissioner Mullis will be here. That just makes my life seem a lot easier, and I'm in good hands. So I'm just really looking forward to spending more time with this group and moving forward with some good projects ahead.
Patrick, Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Chair Andrews. Good afternoon, Commissioners. And I'll just jump in and share the congratulations first to Commissioner Dixon. I actually had the honor of hearing about this award a few months ago because they wanted somebody to provide, or some people, I guess, hopefully lots of people provide feedback on all your wonderful qualities, and so I had a great chance to write something up and send it in. So I was glad that they shared it. And then I also want to just congratulate Commissioner Wilhoit, and Commissioner Mullis isn't here. I mean, I'm only a year plus in this job, and I would hate to have lose a chance of working with you guys so soon. So I'm glad that both of you will be continuing to serve. So in terms of an update, I've actually been out of the office for a big chunk of time, so people have to fill me in on what's happened. But no, I actually spent the past 10 days on the East Coast. First, I was in Washington, D.C., leading a business delegation, a Portland business delegation, along with Commissioner Fish to the White House. The White House invited Portland business leaders to come and share our priorities, our issues with the White House Business Council, and they pulled together a number of cabinet officials from Treasury and from Commerce, from the President's National Economic Council, as well as their Council on Environmental Quality, and they were able to present their programs that they have to match their agenda, but also listen to our issues as well. So that was certainly the highlight of my trip. I also had the chance a week ago to spend a day in Philadelphia with the Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation, a great kind of peer organization of ours, so that I could learn how they do business and take away some of their best practices. So I'm going to be sharing those with the board and staff when we have more time. And then the remainder of the week, I was with another Portland delegation, about 50 folks from Portland, leaders from all different organizations, including Kimberly Brandon was with us, as well as Peter Englander from PDC staff. And we were there's a group that does this annually. They go to different cities to learn best practices in a variety of areas, whether it be the transportation priorities, or kind of how the business community works with collaboratively with public sector, different programs, how the institutions work together. And Cleveland is great example of a community where their institutions, particularly their universities and their foundations, play a significant role in direction of the city. So I think that's one of the lessons that we take back here to, and we did have representatives from those groups, so I think we can have something to shoot for in that regard. So that was a significant chunk of time since our last board meeting. A couple other things just to highlight. As Chair Andrews mentioned, the Portland Plan was approved. That's a significant step forward for the city. The first one, I think, since 1980, and the Portland Plan reflects a number of the strategies that we put together to guide our work, and so we were happy to play a significant role in crafting the direction of not only the economic growth and prosperity part of the Portland Plan, but also the healthy neighborhood section of it. Our neighborhood economic development strategy is very much in alignment with that. And then, of course, we do share the overarching goal or the umbrella of value of equity in the Portland Plan. And so we consider ourselves to be one of the primary partners in implementation of that plan. I think as you'll hear about later on this afternoon, we've had a number of public forums, including one on the 17th of April around the proposed new education URA. I think those have been great opportunities to hear what the community thinks about the proposal. And the one I was at, I had the chance to jointly present along with President Van Wevel from PSU, and it was just great to hear the feedback, both the enthusiasm as well as some of the open issues. So you'll hear, I think the board will hear the summary of that feedback later on in our agenda. A couple of upcoming events. On Wednesday, I'm speaking before the Emerging Local Government Leaders Forum, which is a group of local public sector employees who do a great job of organizing events with Portland and state leaders. And so and that was postponed from January, so I'm looking forward to that. The Software Association of Oregon, one of our primary partners in our cluster work, particularly obviously in software, is having their annual dinner on Thursday evening. I'd be a chance to present some of our entrepreneurship work to that group. And then we're also having we along with the city are co-sponsoring the International Business Awards dinner on the 15th of May. This is the third year that we've done it. We do it with the Oregon Consular Corps, which is the group of diplomats that reside here locally, and it's been a tremendous success. We usually have about 1,000 people in attendance, and we honor about a half a dozen companies who all have different levels of success, either in exporting or are international companies that have made a significant contribution to the community. But it's just a great chance to showcase all the great work that's going on in making Portland a global city. And I would just want to highlight one RFP that we have outstanding. I think the board knows that we received money from the federal government, a collection of agencies led by the EDA, to do. It's called the Jobs and Innovation Accelerator Challenge Grant, but it's a grant from the federal government to promote innovation within the local economy. And so we've used ours to match up our local manufacturers with clean tech market opportunities. So the RFP is we're putting $700,000 available for local manufacturers to apply for and use those dollars to bring to local universities to initiate research for products and technologies that they have thought about and would like to pursue but don't have the means to do so on their own. So that RFP was issued, I think, last week. Responses are due by the end of May on the 30th, and then we're also holding two different kind of pre-proposal meetings. People can come and ask questions on one's tomorrow, and then we have another one on the 18th, and those are being held at PSU's hosting those in their engineering building. PSU, Washington State University in Vancouver, and a couple other university partners are helping us with that. And then, as I've always done, we want to highlight a few new employees. We have the first one is a new employee recently hired as a construction services coordinator. Her name is Elise Hendrickson. She's, well, from where I sit, she's hiding behind the post there. But she's comes from Howard S. Wright, so she has direct experience in the general construction industry, so she'll be a great addition to our team, led by Dave Oburn, which has got a significant workload. So welcome, Elise. And then the second one is not really a new hire, but it's a promotion. So Trang Lam, who's been with the organization, for maybe 5 years, working in our Essential City division, doing a variety of projects, has been promoted to a manager in our neighbor division, and she's going to head up our new business development team. So this is a team that has been created under John Jackley's direction to go out and make our work with local businesses a reality. And so it's a different approach for us. It's getting people out on the street, meeting directly with businesses, and we wanted somebody to lead that team who had experience with that. And I don't know if you're aware, but Trang ran a small business, a family-owned business for many years, and knows what it's like to run a small business and deal with all the different things, including getting out on the street and selling. So we're very excited that Trang has applied for that position, and she won out of a very competitive pool of candidates. So she starts today, I think. She starts in her new role today. So we're very excited. Congratulations to Trang. And I think that's it. I'm done.
Great. Thank you very much, and welcome, and congratulations to Trang from me as well. I have really enjoyed working with her on many of the projects over the last 4 years. She's terrific. Next on the agenda are the meeting minutes of April 11th, 2012. You found at your desk actually a reprint. There were just a couple of typos that needed to be changed from the one that was provided in the packet before. No substantive change to them whatsoever.
I move approval.
I second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, we have opportunity for public comments for items not on the agenda. I have no one signed up, so we will move on to the next item, which is a consent agenda item. Resolution 6940, requesting City Council issue bonds to refund bonds previously issued for River District Urban Renewal Area. Because of the time constraints today, we put this on consent agenda, but I would tell you it's good news. I mean, one of the nice things about the slow economy is that interest rates are still very good. This would provide for some refinancing of existing bonds that will save us about $200,000 a year for the next 11 years, which means there's $2 million more to spend in the River District, and it's a great time to be selling bonds to pay off the de jure debt. So look for a motion to approve Resolution 6940.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, on to the regular agenda. And for those of you who were looking at agendas that were passed out prior, we did remove the update on the film industry, which was item number 8, just to make sure that we had enough time to get through the testimony and also the folks who are interested to present on this. So this is report 12-02. It's informational only. The state and city budgeting process is somewhat complicated, but we do not actually vote on the budget itself until it comes back to us from City Council. City Council acts as our budget committee. So what we will be doing today is making some modifications to the proposed budget that we looked at in January. Most of those have to do with the usual housekeeping changes and a couple of new items that have come before us. We'll listen to testimony from the URACs, and then we will make suggestions in terms of the budget that will go to the City Council for their review as budget committee. So far, this would be my 4th opportunity to present to City Council, and they have not changed one of our items by $1 in the past, and that's because there is such a great level of communication on a year-long basis between us and each one of the City Council members. But we work very, very hard to be as transparent as possible and make it easy for them to understand and not have any surprises. So with that, Tony Barnes. Give you all the hot tamales.
Good afternoon, Chair Andrews, Commissioners, and Executive Director Quinton. I'm Tony Barnes, Budget Officer at PDC, and what I'd like to do today before we go into the public testimony on the 12-13 budget is provide a quick overview of the budget process, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going over the next couple months, and then also talk about some of the proposed changes, some of the possible changes that would go into the 12-13 proposed budget that would be presented to City Council. So a quick overview of the budget process. Back in December, we started with developing work plans within the departments at PDC in the different urban renewal areas and in programmatic areas. We've also worked with the board to revise a strategic plan, and we went out to UREX and other stakeholder groups to receive stakeholder priorities. We've used that stakeholder priority process to help develop internally the requested budget and review that budget with the board in January. Out of that process, we presented the budget, requested budget, that went to City Council, the Office of Management and Finance of the City of Portland, in February. We reviewed those requested budgets with the stakeholders, direct groups, reviewed with City Council, and we reviewed internally over the last couple of months. And we went through a really intensive process of reviewing and confirming project and program budgets. This was an intensive effort that took a good portion of PDC staff over the last month to really focus in, take a second look at our budgets that are in the 12-13 budget, 5-year plan, and confirm the full project costs for completing those projects. So as we talk a little bit more about some of the staff recommended changes, those would be included. And then today we have stakeholder testimony and on the actual requested budget and review of those possible budget changes that would go into the proposed budget. Now moving forward into May, we plan on publishing the official PDC 12-13 proposed budget and 5-year plan. That'll be presented to the PDC Budget Committee, that is City Council acting as the PDC Budget Committee, on May 16th. And then there will be a public hearing May 17th, the evening of May 17th, 6:30 at David Douglas High School. I believe that's the location of the public hearing. And then that will be followed by council approval on May 30th. And then moving into June, we'll be sending following council approval, sending the budget to the Tax Commission, the TSCC. They'll do a technical review of the budget, make sure it conforms with local budget law. And then we'll come back to you on June 13th to review that approved budget and take any final direction on the budget. And finally, on June 27th, we'll have the Tax Commission public hearing on the budget, and the board will have the opportunity to adopt the budget at that point in time. So that's an overview of the process, and I can answer any questions on process at this point. Moving forward, so stakeholder input. Just as I mentioned before, in December we did a prioritized ranking with the URACs and several other groups. We also sat down with the Portland Business Alliance. We received some prioritizations from URACs, a letter from the Lloyd Executive Partnership, which is, I believe, before you today, as well as the Portland Business Alliance. And then as we released the requested budget, the actual budget figures going forward, January through April, we received letters from stakeholders on the specific budget estimates. So that included letters from 7 URACs, as well as Leach Botanical Gardens. And that's included in your packet, as well as several submittals that followed up over the last couple of weeks. A quick overview on some staff recommended changes. We have a number of carryover items. When I was before you on April 11th, we talked about actually reducing the budget in a couple areas. We're starting to recognize those items now in the 11-12 budget. Some of those are related to internal technology projects that will be completed next year, and others related to specific infrastructure or development projects. As I mentioned also, we'll have updates based on the full project budgeting. So we took a hard look at making sure we incorporated full staffing costs across all project programs for whether it's construction environmental service time, asset management time, other project management time across all projects, and making sure that we had the right estimates on a project-by-project basis. This didn't change the amount of staffing included in the budget since the requested budget, but in some cases redistributed staffing costs across different URAs or funding sources and projects. And then finally, there's a reallocation across funding sources for some business development and site recruitment activities. We took a hard look at what funding sources should be responsible for paying or budgeting some site recruitment and other business development activities. So again, not an overall increase in the budget, but just a reallocation across districts.
I think it might be helpful just to point out again that this is the first year that we have had a software system, a financial system that actually allows us to allocate staff time directly to projects. And since it's brand new, was only in place 6 or 7 months when we started this process, there were still some bugs in it in terms of making sure that it was complete. So this year, one of the requests I saw in one of the letters had to do with getting mid-year reports in terms of where expenditures were. We're coming close to being able to provide those mid-year, although they're not necessarily accurate in terms of where we're going to end up. It will give you a snapshot. A lot of times we'll end up spending monies in fairly large hunks in time frames. It doesn't happen 1/12 at a time over a particular year, but this reallocation is a new part of the process because we've never had really the information that allowed us to make sure that the staff time, for example, Eric's time, would be spent on a particular project on the legal piece of it versus just legal staff time.
And we'll, following up on that point, it'll put us in a really good position, this process we went through in the last month, to get our best estimate in place for starting the fiscal year. And as we manage the budget, we'll be checking in internally on a monthly basis to see how we're progressing using that software. Additional proposed changes that have come up, I'm going to start with some in the River District 5-year plan. Starting with the post office, in last year's budget and forecast, I believe we had a total amount around $62 million in the 5-year plan. That was slightly reduced in the requested budget version, which was before you in January, in order to make room for some other adjustments in other line items, some programmatic funding, specifically related with inserting the Multnomah County facility obligation in FY 13-14. There was a $10 million obligation that was put in. Since that time, we've made some additional, we've taken another look at it and made some additional recommended changes in the capacity in the district. It looks like we can bring in the full funding, as it was stated last year's budget, of $62 million. And the same goes for the Centennial Mills project, a full amount of around $15 million, full project costs. That's a more conservative estimate than I think we've had in prior budgets. Also included as a recommended change is the 10th and Yamhill solar power contingency. This is related to an IGA that was entered into last fall, I believe. So it's really a $5 million guarantee that would go into the 10th and Yamhill project. It's not necessarily money that would be allocated to be spent, but it's farther out in the 5-year forecast. It's a reservation of funds. And then the Multnomah County facility, as I mentioned, there was a $10 million amount that's required in 13-14 that was related to the River District Amendment. There's a request for Multnomah County to bring forward the balance of the requirement, which is $16.9 million. So the total would be $26.9 million in fiscal year 13-14. Right.
And this one, Commission hasn't had much of an opportunity to see it. It will before it gets approved, but quite simply, we had the entire $26 million set aside for Multnomah County's use within the River District. We're pulling forward the last piece of it because they actually are working diligently on a building on the second half of Bud Clark Resource Access Center. And really a pretty fantastic facility, office facility, as well as treatment facility and some retail on the ground floor. So you'll get an opportunity to see that but it should do great things in terms of bringing more people into that neighborhood and energize the economy around the train station and this particular neighborhood.
Right, and this pulls it into the 5-year forecast, but not into the 12-13 budget. So it's into the 13-14 budget. So you would obviously have an opportunity to not only to review it when it comes forward as a project, but when we review next year's budget, that's when it'll be part of the actual budget request.
So it has been on the budget previously, or is this?
It was in 2 tranches. The $10 million was to be paid out in 13-14, and then the remaining 16.9, I believe, was 10 years farther out. Okay. This was part of the
River District expansion.
Exactly.
Yep.
And there was a change in the state statute. This was part of that, and so that's always been in the long-term forecast, but they've requested to accelerate that for this building.
And finally, in River District, a request for some Burnside safety improvements going into the 5-year forecast, the 12-13 budget and 5-year forecast. Some additional requests that would potentially impact the 12-13 budget includes additional an overfunding for the Veterans Memorial Coliseum that would be paid back in future years, as well as funding for Leach Botanical Gardens, which I believe you'll hear. There's some testimony, written testimony in your packet today.
And I want to talk about each one of these just briefly. Veterans Memorial Coliseum is actually using the $4.5 million that got freed up in the very last minute in terms of the bonding authority. We thought we were going to have to set aside that amount, and so it became available. And the city through OMF is working on an agreement where they would provide $4.5 million, $5 million worth of improvements. But the spectator fund is under duress because of the soccer stadium until about 15 or 16. So this will actually be a performing loan for us in that time, and we'll get paid back over time from the fund. It's a placeholder at this point. You will see full details as part of the Veterans Memorial Coliseum project. Leach Botanical Garden, you'll remember that as part of the process, we actually removed all of the parks funding out of future years, the board's focus being economic development, but suggesting to everyone that we're more than willing to listen in terms of each individual project and what its impact is. Commissioner Mullis and I actually went out and visited the Botanical Garden. Their board did community outreach. I imagine we might hear about it today, but has done a really good job of showing what the return on the investment will be, both in terms of increased attendance as well as leverage to create other funding that will increase the usability of the garden. And this is not your typical park by any stretch of the imagination. And I think that from what I've learned, both their organization and the garden itself will be better for having gone through this process. So we are suggesting that we go back. One of the things they did in their analysis was to realize that the funding that they had requested, they didn't need it in that time. They actually didn't need it as quickly. So we're going to put $200,000 into next year's budget and the last $900,000 into the fiscal year following. Okay.
That completes my presentation. And so,
okay. Are people going to come up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll do.
And Tony will come back.
Testimony, and then we'll ask Tony to come back and answer any
Thanks,
questions that we have that come up from this. So what I was trying to do was group people by their geography. And so first we have Michelle Reeves, and also if Jackie Putnam and Damian Hall would come forward.
you doing? So I'm starting?
You're
Michelle
starting.
Reeves. All right, so I'm here representing the Neighborhood Economic Development Leadership Group, and I'm going to give you a quick once-over on kind of the budget review that we did. So we had a group of over 30 people meet together in 2 meetings, and we broke up into 2 groups to look specifically at general fund request and TIF spending. So I'm going to talk about feedback in those 2 buckets. First with the general fund, and that's looking at the MPI districts, the small business technical assistance, and the EOI, microenterprise and workforce training. First of all, there's a really high level of excitement about these new programs, and people really want to dig in and be effective and collaborate. And there was a real sense that these are kind of the heart of the new direction that PDC is going in terms of economic development. And for these programs to be successful, they need to be funded consistently over a long period of time so you can develop them and iterate and make sure that they're really highly effective. So there was really strong consensus that there needs to be a very consistent ask for these, not just this year, but in years going out for these kinds of programs, because they really represent the new direction of PDC, of not just focusing on infrastructure. Then the second thing that we looked at were specifically TIF funds and dispensation for those. And we got a little bit more detail because we have more programmatic history there, but we also looked at the big picture. A couple of things that we considered was this debate on big versus small. Should PDC be spending a lot of money on big projects or small projects, so Vestas or storefront improvement programs? And there was pretty clear consensus that they felt it was appropriate for PDC to focus on both, and there should always be this sort of tension and this conflict maybe between the two, but PDC had a role to play in both and should not be focusing on one or the other exclusively. The other thing that really came out of this meeting very clearly was that PDC should become a voice or an advocate for what we ended up calling the small. So everyone in the group felt that city systems are really developed with this idea in mind of kind of big business and big development coming together with their team and meeting with the city and their team, and then everyone hashes it out and ends up somewhere in the middle. But the small business and small projects, they don't have a team of accountants and lawyers and planners and transportation engineers, and we don't really set up processes and systems across transportation and TriMet and code and zoning for the small to be able to navigate these things, business loans. So they would really like to see a role for PDC in breaking down some of the silos for smaller business and economic development. I'm going to run over time just slightly reporting in because there's a little bit of detail here. But infrastructure and parks, which you just talked about today, there was definitely concern about creep. So streets have a department and parks have a department, and there was concern that PDC was getting pulled too much into those areas, and they really wanted to see PDC funds be leveraged or really be focusing still on areas where there was some commercial feedback. Particularly with streets, that was an issue. And I just only have a couple more related to TIF funds. Another program that came up was applying those to SDC subsidization for small projects in disadvantaged areas with disadvantaged property owners. They love the storefront improvement program, and they would like to see more outreach for those programs where they are not fully subscribed, so that they are fully subscribed because they're very effective. And lastly, the DOS program was another program that was listed as being very effective for experienced property owners, but not so much for inexperienced property owners. So exploring what kinds of programmatic intervention could happen prior to DOS to make it more effective for people who are not experienced with development. So that's the quick 3.5-minute overview.
Get a prize for that. That was quite a coverage.
Yeah.
Next?
Amy? Sure.
Okay. Thank you to the members of the commission for this opportunity to testify here today. My name is Damian Hall. I'm here on behalf of the Oregon Convention Center Urban Renewal Area Advisory Committee, of which I'm the chair. We've met in 2 different meetings and discussed the draft budget. The input of the URAC on the budget has been submitted in written testimony that I believe is in your packet. There's various disparate comments from the members of the URAC, but there was one thing I'd like to highlight today that we had a consensus on as far as a request for the budget actually in out years, is that the OCC is unique in that it's sunsetting, and that there currently isn't anything in the budget that would be a study to take advantage of the fact that it's going away and take a look back from a public policy perspective and see what's been achieved, and frankly what objectives haven't been achieved, and really highlight what has been accomplished by PDC in the Oregon Convention Center URA over the last 25 years. And I think that that's an opportunity there that if financed in, I don't think it has to be immediately, because there's a couple years of spending left and a decent amount of money to fund some larger projects that would be beneficial to include in that study. But looking at that and giving staff some direction and a budget to go forward and look at that, a study along those lines would be beneficial. That's really it, unless you have any questions.
No, I think that's a great idea. I'm kind of wondering if we might be able to put something together with Portland State. Yeah, I think that would be a great class, and there will be several years. I mean, the last date for issuing bonds is coming forward, but nonetheless, there's a few $1 million out there that will be looking for the right home and the right leverage. But I appreciate the thought. Jackie.
My name is Jackie Putnam. I'm the co-chair for the Gateway PAC. Bob Ernest, the other co-chair, is not able to attend today. And I thank you for this opportunity. Many of the PAC members in Gateway have been involved with this project since the inception and the designation as a URA. And they came with great hope envisioning the new East Side Gateway. And time has made a lot of those people weary. The reality is we're halfway through our URA period and we have little to boast about. And members are quite concerned that we'll piddle away our dollars with nothing to show should there be some catalytic project surface. What we've attempted to do in the past is call our attention to Gateway as a regional transit center, and that doesn't seem to have worked as well as we have liked it to. Most of our money's been devoted to rail and the receiving center, and we released property that we were holding for a parking lot, and our largest accomplishment, a very good one, has been the Oregon Clinic and the improvements to the 102nd Avenue. And this year we finished the 97th Avenue Green Street project, which was a collaborative initiative for financing, and it was very, very well put together. We've lost a lot of dollars on property in the past, and we're looking forward to the Gateway Commons, which is a human solutions project. But we have kind of a mixed feeling. That's largely a workforce housing with commercial non-taxable tenants on the ground floor. But we've done a lot of studies in the past, and as our budget submittal letter indicates, we want to change our tone a little bit, and we do encourage development in the neighborhood, obviously, but the most recent initiative on the studies has been that from the mayor's office, and there were a lot of small projects that we think could be enhance the Gateway Transit Center, and we're supporting those. But we're most of all looking forward to PDC being out in the front, trying to recruit development in the neighborhood and looking at the things we already have that work and enhancing those and keeping our local businesses in place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Cynthia Salusky, Chris Duffy, Pam Arden.
Good afternoon. My name is Cynthia Salasky, and I'm chair of the Parks Subcommittee for the Interstate Corridor URA. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. I believe in your packet you have a letter that was by unanimous vote of the ICRAC regarding our displeasure with the zeroing out of the funding for parks projects from fiscal years 13 and up. And we sent such a letter to City Council and to the PDC Commission last year, as well as just, I believe, last week or 2 weeks ago. I would like to just give context to this. ICRA is 12 years old now. Hundreds of residents in the Interstate Corridor URA, plus PDC staff, developed a series of objectives, value statements, principles, guiding principles for ICRA, and they included for parks and open space some of the following, to protect, maintain, and improve existing parks, open space assets within the corridor, to enhance, extend, and create pedestrian and bicycle linkages between area residents, jobs, and light rail and parks and open spaces, to meet the recreational and open space needs of the community, to acquire vacant, abandoned sites for pocket parks, and to preserve and enhance natural areas. We had a very slow start given that the yellow max line was paid for, $30 million to pay for that. Then there was $7 million to pay for New Columbia. So by the time those were paid for, we were into our 5th or 6th year. So we did, with PDC and park staff, representing the 12 neighborhoods, 14 parks in Interstate Corridor, comprehensive plan of our assets in parks, trails, and open spaces. In fact, we did 2 of those. We had a very specific list of projects, and those projects were included in the Interstate Corridor gem list. For the last, from 2001 to 2008, of all of the TIF dollars spent in ICRA, 2% were spent on parks, 2% in those 7 years. In the next 2 or 3 years after that, the expenditure increased to approximately 5%. We were excited to see that in the next couple of years that it would be almost up to 10%, and we'd be able to really see some significant results. Instead, we see that our funding for parks projects has zeroed out from fiscal years 14 and up, and for next year, we have no money for small parks projects. So we would strongly recommend that the monies be reinstated for those parks projects. Thank you.
Yeah, I can ask one question. As far as reinstated, are you talking totally?
No, actually, we're not talking totally, but we'd like to have a discussion about that and engagement with PDC staff. We've not been asked for any input in the specific dollar amounts, so in our letter, we could just make a broad statement like that.
Okay, yeah, and having served on that interstate corridor expansion, I know the gym list was something that was talked about quite often, and we need to take a look at that, so I appreciate you coming in and sharing with us.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Duffy, and I'm co-chair of the Interstate Corridor Group. And I wanted to emphasize that parks is a priority with that group. Over the last 2 meetings, we've had a lot of discussion about the proposed budget for the upcoming year. And one of the top concerns that we have is with the fact that nothing is allocated currently for the parks budget. And I want you to know that the group unanimously agrees with Cynthia that we need to continue to make progress in that area, continue the projects that are in the works, and try to move some things up into the current year. We feel that parks are a priority to a thriving neighborhood, to a thriving business district. People consistently say that when they look at a neighborhood, they want to know there's good schools, convenient businesses and services, and they want parks available. It's a top priority. So if we want to continue to attract people and development in our area, we need to take care of our parks. I have a couple of other comments I want to offer too, in addition to our concerns about parks, more of a general sense than specifics to do with this year's budget. We've been in a holding pattern basically for the last couple of years because of constraints to the budgeting process in getting projects going, attracting development and so on. So we are concerned about getting more outreach done in our area, trying to attract new businesses, new developers, new services for our areas. The people on our committee and in our neighborhoods are very much in support of the Portland plan. We're in support of the concept of 20-minute neighborhoods and in support in general of making Portland an even greater place to live. So I was very happy to hear that you have someone who is going to be doing direct outreach to businesses. We're also concerned about the restructuring of the boundaries, as Commissioner Wilhoit knows from the North-Northeast Economic Development Study that took place a couple of years ago, and how things are going to be prioritized. We need to see the gem list completed, as was promised during those discussions, but we only have 8 years left in our URA, and I hear some of the new mayoral candidates talking about wanting to sunset urban renewal areas on schedule. Since we did get off to such a slow start, I hope we will not be held to that under a new mayor and a new direction. And we would like to be able to entertain the possibility of extension if it's necessary, because so little has been able to move forward in the last few years. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, again, I'll point out the sunsetting has to do with the last dates that you can actually sell the bonds, right? It doesn't have to do with the expenditure of funds. So it's very common. I mean, the South Auditorium, not South Auditorium, but the South Park blocks has been 5-6 years, I think.
Yeah,
and it's
4 years. Yeah.
And it's still, there's still funds to be expended. So it doesn't end at that particular time. There's still a logical and thoughtful process to make sure that the things get completed as they're supposed to. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pam Martin. I live in the Kenton area, and I've been a member of the ICRAC since its inception. And I'm also a volunteer with a variety of other organizations, one of which is the 40 Mile Loop Land Trust. And one of the projects that we have is what's called the North Portland Greenway Trail, which would be extending East Bank Esplanade to North Portland. And that's a transportation as well as a recreation path. Now, I bring this up mainly because we had in this last year an opportunity with us getting an almost $500,000 grant through MTIP funds to have this grant do a study for this trail. But we needed to come up with $55,000 in matching funds in order to get that other money freed up. So we came to the ICRAC and we got $26,000 for that trail, for that package, to help with the $55,000 match, which means we had now $550,000 to do a study. Now, if this trail had been coming on and this study had been coming on in future years, I would not have been able to go to the ICRAC and say, we need some parks money, because we would have said there was no money there. When you're looking at $26,000, it's a very small amount of money in the scope of PDC. But when you're talking about leveraging $500,000, it's a really key piece of money. And when you're talking about we can't fund parks because we need every dollar to go to jobs, let's look at that $26,000 and what it's doing for jobs. It has now helped to hire a consultant firm that's doing the study for that trail. We're going to have a 10% document so that we can go out and shop around for money to build that trail. So that means we need to hire more people to do more design work, to do more planning work, so that we can now hire more people to build the trail. So in essence, your first little bit of money of $26,000 comes out to be millions and millions of dollars in the long run. So in some ways, we're looking at PDC saying everything's got to be looked at as jobs. But I think in some ways, you're not looking at jobs in the greater picture of things. People want to have money for jobs, but they also need to have parks. They also need to have trails. They need to be able to have recreation. They need to have a way to get to work without using public transportation. So we need to look at the wide scope of things and not just, gosh, it's a park. It's a bunch of swing sets. It's a bunch of playground equipment. It's more than that. It's part of a livable community, and that's what we're trying to do with this PDC stuff, is make our communities much more livable. I've lived in the Kenton neighborhood since 1976, and I have seen the Kenton area at wax and wane with what can happen. But we have some wonderful things happening, and some things have been based on PDC funds and urban renewal funds. But please don't give up on parks. They do leverage an awful lot of other stuff for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. More? Okay. So Brian Newman, David Porter, and Gay Greger.
Hi, Brian. North Mac as well. You testify in North Mac as well? No. Oh, okay. Chair Andrews, members of the Commission, my name is Brian Newman. I'm the Campus Planning and Development Director at Oregon Health and Science University. Thanks for the opportunity to testify today about your budget. I want to acknowledge two of my colleagues on the URAC as well as the Budget Subcommittee who couldn't be here but who worked very closely with me on, and the staff, of course, on the recommendations. Mark Gregory with Portland State University. He might walk in a little bit later for another agenda item. And Tom Noguchi, our chair. I also want to thank the staff, Julie Rawls, Lisa Aboaf, and Geraldine Moyle for working with us as well. I'm just going to cover, we sent in a letter that should be part of your packet. It's short and sweet, and I just want to cover a little bit of our priorities for next year. We focused, for the most part, when it came to the budget deliberations on business development, property redevelopment, and transportation, those three interconnected priorities. Because so much of our URAC resources are dedicated to very important projects that are underway right now, the Portland to Milwaukee Light Rail Project, the Greenway Project with Portland Parks and Rec, and of course the Block 49 housing that I think it's now called Gray's Landing. We spend a little bit of time mostly just focusing on the fewer resources that are available for more discretionary near-term priorities. And transportation is really what we've focused on. It's the story of South Waterfront. It's the big issue, the big challenge as it relates to access into the district, and so that still continues to take a lot of our attention. If you go down there today, it's amazing what's going on with all of the project, both public and private, a lot of it leveraged through the Portland Development Commission that's happening in South Waterfront. You've got Moody Street that is wrapping up its work. You've got the light rail project, as I mentioned, that's under construction. You have our Collaborative Life Sciences building, the $295 million that is made possible on this specific site because of the good work of the Commission. And, of course, Commissioner Wilhoit is our chair, and so is very familiar with that project. And then you have the Gibbs Pedestrian Bridge, which is going to be opening, I believe, in the next month or two. And so all those things have made a bit of a headache for the people coming in and out of the district, but it's all for good, and we're excited about the future. When it comes to the few remaining projects before this district ends its work, three things caught our attention as a subcommittee, and we wanted to take the little bit of resources we have to kind of try to leverage other resources that are out there and seed those three projects. The first one being the South Portal. It's still highly constrained at the south end of the district down at Bancroft and McAdam, and so we're working with PBOT on a new approach to be able to address that congestion. They were able to get a grant from Metro, so the funds that we're dedicating or recommending that be dedicated, the $75,000, will leverage $325,000 from Metro dollars. Real quick, because my time's up, there's the Bond Avenue. The Moody is supposed to be a couplet someday, and we very much need Bond, so we're dedicating $185,000 to that project, as well as bike and pedestrian. The third is bike and pedestrian improvements, particularly connecting our new campus to PSU. We'll have 1,000 students a day going between the two campuses, and they have great transit resources. We want to make sure that the bikeway and the facilities on the new bridge can be continued up through to the south end of downtown. So that's really where we're focusing. We're real thankful for the staff in helping us facilitate that consensus, and I'll just leave it at that. And this is not related to my presentation, but I'll give you a couple of brochures that
Commissioner Wilhoit's very much aware of, which is a summary of our facilities master plan. And so much of these projects leverage all the things that we talk about in this master plan. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a conflict?
Strictly biased here, but no, I think I don't even need to say that everyone would recognize the economic engine that OHSU represents, and just happy to be able to play a role in both capacities and to state publicly that I get no income or cash from either. So I'm happy to connect the dots, and I think that's what we've been working very hard at doing throughout the city. So we hear a common thread of pedestrian path connection, and we heard the three prior speakers talking about parks and crossings and paths. I mean, these things are all interrelated, particularly in Portland, Oregon. And I appreciate the comment that was made earlier about the notion that when you leverage dollars, and that's what we're talking about, you have to look all the way down the line to see what type of job creation is possible. And Brian, your comments make that clear, and the comments before you make that clear as well. That's something we're tasked with here at PDC, and we will take a look back with regard to the interstate and the parks, because we need to be clear when we're talking about the gem list and some of the things we talked about in that Northeast study that were a priority in the community. So I think everyone is aware of that. Appreciate everyone coming in, talking about it, including you, Brian, for OHSU. And when I say OHSU, I'm speaking for the city of Portland and the state of Oregon. That's the way I look at OHSU. So happy to have everyone come in and make the comments, but I think it's worth stating that leverage is really what we try to do with public funding, and leverage has to extend down the road in any way that it can with regard to job retention or creation. So didn't mean to be so windy about it, but thank you very much for coming in, both of you.
Thank you.
So I'm Gay Greger. I'm the president of Leach Garden Friends, and I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you very much for being willing to reconsider funding for the garden. I think you'll be very pleased with the results of this investment. We intend to make you proud. So I want to introduce David Porter, who's our executive director, for the rest of our 3 minutes.
Thank you, Kay. I am David Porter. I'm the executive director at Leach Botanical Garden, and we were pleasantly surprised to see that you are reconsidering the funding at the garden. I particularly appreciate Chair Andrews' comment that Leach is not your typical park. It's an extraordinary gem in outer East Portland. It may be the only thing of its kind in that part of the city, and we hope that you come and visit if you haven't done already. I'd like to acknowledge several members of our board of directors who came out of interest today, and our very important partner, Mike Abate, who's the director of Portland Parks and Recreation. We do everything that we do in partnership with parks. It's an extraordinary relationship, and thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you. So I just wanted to personally say, with regard to the process that we've gone through in terms of reevaluating the Lentz Park, I think it's important to put into context with just kind of the direction that the organization has gone from, development and housing to the economic development. And it was never meant to pick out particular projects or particular neighborhoods, but what it was meant to do is to do what we've done with all our projects. And that is, especially if they were conceived under the old economy, and that is, we need to take a hard look at them today in the context of today's economy, in the context of today's development opportunities. And I guess it's not always fun, but I think in the Leach situation, from my understanding, that the board learned a lot by having to sit down, go out and do community outreach again, get support of the businesses, take a look at the business plan, and I'm kind of confident that they've got a better plan for it, and our investment is going to lever more than would have happened if we've just moved forward and said okay. So sorry for raising your blood pressure a little bit, but I hope at the end of the day that you're as pleased as we are that the process worked, and we appreciate you working with us. And if you haven't been out to botanical gardens, go. It's pretty fantastic. Tony, you want to come back to the table? Charles, I'll let you start. Got any?
No, I'm just thinking about the stage we're at in the process right now. Maybe you can put that back up on the screen for everyone. Because if I was a citizen and I took the time to come in and make comment about the budget, I'd want to know what the opportunity was for change in the budget at this point in time and how that might come about. And the presentation is always very thorough from the staff here at PDC with regard to the budget. As everyone can see, it's a very detailed budget when you get it in your hands. And they always say the devil's in the details. One of these issues that's kind of gnawing at me as I sit here now, having been through the North-Northeast study and having heard your comments, Chair Andrews, about the botanical garden, I'm compelled to kind of ask what opportunities do we have to take a look at interstate. And although I hate to do this to the Citizens Advisory Committee, if you had to prioritize, where would that priority be? I ask you the question, are you talking for reinstatement of all of the funding for parks? I think everyone recognizes where we are as an economy and the limited resources that we're dealing with, and the fact that everyone is really focusing on economic advancement. And I would acknowledge that parks are critical towards thriving neighborhoods and towards bringing people into neighborhoods and keeping them in neighborhoods. And it takes some investment to develop a park. So there are jobs that would be associated with that. I just want to know what kind of flexibility we have and if we have been consistent across the line in removing parks funding within all the other urban renewal advisory areas.
Yes, Commissioner, in the 5-year plan, outside of existing commitments, there's been reductions across the board in the 5-year plan. Moving forward, staff will proceed to take any direction from this board over the next week to insert any potential changes into the proposed budget 5-year forecast. That would be presented on May 16th to City Council. We're on a timeline right now to publish our proposed budget, and basically we need to do our final budget balancing by the end of this week for the proposed budget. However, then it goes before Council on May 16th. There's a public hearing on May 17th and approval on May 30th. There's an opportunity for Council to make specific changes at that point on May 30th. And then it will come back to the board for the board's consideration in June, and your opportunity to make any additional changes as long as it doesn't increase any one fund, a fund being a URA, by more than 10% in total expenditures for the 12-13 fiscal year. We can make additional changes to the 5-year plan on an ongoing basis if needed. I
think it's important that we really have a 1-year budget and a 5-year forecast. And because our funding is, it isn't, we can't pin it down. We don't know exactly what it is. It has to do with increased values from property taxes. It also has to do with the marketplace in terms of what interest rates are, and what kind of reserves are necessary to provide bonds. In the interim, when we don't buy bonds, we borrow the money, so it depends on what those interest rate costs are. So the past next fiscal year, it is a real attempt to try to balance projected revenues with projected expenses. And every single year, we sit down and take a look at what the next year is in particular. That goes to City Council. City Council acts as the budget review. They approve it. We actually have the ability to change items within the budget up to about 10%. I can't remember the exact, up to 10% without having to go back to City Council. But really we're dealing with, for the most part, with next fiscal year. And we even have the opportunity to be able to make changes on the run there. But, I appreciate you asking the question.
Yeah, just focusing on the comments where if you're a member of the committee, the Citizens Advisory Committee, and you're looking all the years out and all the funding is removed, my concern is that when we went through that North-Northeast study, and I don't know what else has been impacted with regard to the gym list, but I know that was of critical importance to members on that committee, and I know they made some decisions based on those items. So is it a matter of that Interstate Corridor Urban Renewal Advisory Committee saying, well, remove that from the gym list, but leave this in? Is it that simple? And I shouldn't say simple. Is it that difficult of a decision? Pick something and prioritize it rather than remove it all. And I don't know if I'm opening a whole can of worms, because this may affect many other urban renewal advisory or urban renewal areas, but I just know that was a topic of major discussion. And I'd hate to think we go through a process like that and then we have a gym list and then the committee comes back and they see it's entirely removed. I don't know if there's a step we can make to keep something in play so that we go down the road, at least there's some movement in one of those prioritized park areas that people are talking about.
Just maybe I can ask a clarifying question. So last year, the budget in Interstate was reduced, right? We had a reduction in resources. So last year we actually had to make a lot of tough choices around balancing the 5-year forecast because of a kind of lower projections around assessed values and ultimately tax increment. I don't know if there's been any return of those, recovery of that, or is it that we're still dealing with a smaller? Because actually a lot of those tough choices were made last year around, because you got to take something out, but the budget, it's not, obviously it's in some respects it's a zero-sum game. You're going to take, you restore that, you're going to take something else out, but I don't know the resource picture offhand.
With the as far as the 5-year plan is concerned, with the amendment that's taken place, there is an improved resource picture as a result of that since that action last year.
Well, rather than spend too much more time on it now, I think you're going to get some more feedback from the citizens who are participating in that area, and I think it's just worth taking a look at that feedback if it's on the order of, if we had a choice to choose one, can we choose this one, and see what type of funding that might require. And I'm not saying it'll get reinstated, but I would just like to have that opportunity to look at what the options are. If we as a group pick this, what has to go, and at least it's a choice. But it sure seems like we're having some feedback from the committee and the community regarding that particular step. And I do recall talking about it last year. And as I said, it's probably opening a can of worms. But when you go through a process like that's a tough thing to see go away and think it's not coming back. I'd rather see something on the calendar or on the schedule for parks improvement, if at all possible. And it's a decision we'll still have to make. And as was stated earlier, it's going to go to council. Council will vote. I'm sure these committed individuals will be in front of city council as well, making the same argument, and we can see what comes of that.
I don't think there was, in my review of it, there wasn't any projects within the gem list outside of the parks that were taken out of the future projection. No.
It was just funding?
It was just the funding, those general funding. So, yeah.
And some of the projects are online for the next year's budget. Yeah. So that's one thing that I think would be really helpful, is if we could have a list that shows, this is what we're prioritizing for next year's budget that is a part of this gem list, and all the other URA lists and priorities, because I think then we could maybe focus what we could do in the next year budget. Because, there's so many projects and all the different URAs have, what their priorities are. And if we could kind of look at that on a regular basis, I think that would be helpful to the committees as well as to us, the board members, just to ensure that, these projects are meeting what our goals are and what, their goals within each of the URAs are as well. Because I know even today we're speaking on some of these, like the Jefferson Plaza and other such projects. So we're not completely abandoning what our priorities are to any of the groups.
Well, and outside of that, I would just say that I was very pleased to hear the support of our focus on economic development. It's clearly established in the budget. Also, the focus on helping smaller businesses and smaller organizations. And having been here as long as I have, I've seen evolution in that regard, and a lot of that's attributable to Chair Andrews and his focus and involvement in the community. The one thing I always want to encourage is when we hear a name like OHSU and we know that the activity that's going on the South Waterfront is very significant, we continue to take all the steps we can to make sure women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, emerging small businesses are connected into the development that we have on the horizon. So those were the final comments I had.
Thank you, Charles. Do you have anything further?
No, that's all for now.
Particular? Okay, so I think what you've heard is the list that you put in front of us is fine to go forward in terms of sending it off to City Council, and we'd kind of like to take a look at interstate in particular, I guess, and see make sure the projects that are in it and what the opportunities and costs might be to make some changes there in the future projections.
Okay.
Got a week to do that. Okay. Okay. Well, we're ahead of schedule. Mr. Mullis won't be available for about 25 minutes. Does it make sense for us?
Can we switch to do
perhaps the Jefferson High School was 25 minutes.
Is that possible?
Is that possible?
We have some folks coming that might come around 5.
Oh, okay.
How about the Metro?
We also have testimony there as well.
On the hotel?
Break time.
Do you want to take a quick recess and see if we can figure out what we can do next?
Take some calls from people.
Yeah, we'll take a quick recess. Perhaps Commissioner Mullis can be made to.
Just want to thank everyone for coming in.
Dinner.
So we'll take a break here. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. Commissioner Mullis is available. Is he here already?
Sure. Oh, there he is.
Welcome. What's the weather like in Washington, D.C.?
It's a little gas, a little muggy, still very pleasant for the evening. And I'm not, I don't know what to get to, but I'll do the best.
Uh-oh.
Hold on, we've got some technical problems here.
Okay.
You got to talk right into the phone.
Okay, is that better?
There you go. There you go. Okay.
Okay, good.
So we are on item 8. I'm looking at two different agendas here. Item 8 now, it was 9, which is accepting the proposed education urban renewal plan and directing the plan be forwarded to the Portland City Council for approval. This is resolution 6935. I have to start today by declaring a potential conflict of interest on this matter. As you know, I'm president of Melvin Mark Properties, and I have a partnership interest in 2 buildings that are within the boundaries of the education urban renewal area. However, none of those projects identified in the plan involve either of these properties. As such, according with state law, I'm declaring my interest but will participate in this matter. But because I've declared a potential conflict of interest, I've asked Commissioner Wilhoit to lead the discussion on this agenda item. Commissioner Wilhoit.
Thanks for joining us, John. And I was a little concerned. You sound like you had been engaging in a little activity that might slur your speech, but glad to hear it was just a phone.
No, not yet, but every minute that I'm on this meeting, you're slowing me down from it.
Well, and wanted to congratulate you and thank you as well. I heard we were approved for another term, so I will be looking forward to working with you, as everyone will be on the commission. You missed all the kind things that we said about you earlier in the meeting, so happy to have you on board. At this time,
Thank you very much. It's an honor and a privilege.
yeah. At this time, I would like to invite Keith Witkowski and Morgan Masterson up to talk about what is report number 1204, resolution 6935. Accepting the proposed education urban renewal plan.
Okay. Commissioner Wilhoit, members of the Commission, Executive Director Quinton. So as you recall, you had a first reading on this item at a public hearing on April 11th, which, as the Commissioner said, this essentially, you're recommending that the urban renewal plan and report be forwarded to City Council for adoption. The public hearing on that at City Council is scheduled for 2 p.m. on May 9th, and then the vote would occur the following week on May 16th. And what we wanted to do real briefly was to highlight some of the outreach and some of the activities that have occurred since the April 11th meeting. So very briefly, and Executive Director Quinton touched on this in his opening report. On April 17th, there was an open house at Portland State University at the Urban Center, which provided opportunities for people to come and receive a presentation on the urban renewal area.
Early.
President Vin Bevel.
Welcome.
So at the open house, there was over 100 people. Mayor Adams, President Bevel, and Executive Director Quinton gave the presentation, received a lot of questions and feedback. And then on April 24th, the plan and report were reviewed at the Planning and Sustainability Commission, and their role in it was to look at it for conformance with the comprehensive plan. And then they also talked extensively about the Portland plan because it was recently voted on. And while their role was not to align it with the Portland plan and equity, it was a big topic of conversation. The 2 people testified at that hearing. The urban renewal plan got unanimous support in terms of being forwarded and recommended for approval by City Council. On April 26th in the morning, intergovernmental agreement was heard before the Multnomah County Board of Commissioners, and that was for the $19 million for the potential co-location of facility for Multnomah County and Portland State for the Department of Health Services and potentially the School of Social Work. 3 people testified at that hearing, and the intergovernmental agreement passed 3-2 by Multnomah County. And then the last outreach that occurred was on April 26th in the evening. The mayor and President Vivel reconvened the Central City Evaluation Committee, which was a group that was originally looked at a much broader district, much larger, 350 acres, 350 million in indebtedness back in 2009. And they received a presentation, basically, as we call it, from the principals on this. And they had 3 people testify. They had opportunities for comments and questions as well. And they voted 14-0-1, with the 1 being an abstention, recommending to the mayor that the plan be brought forward to City Council for approval. And so the last item, I would just say that since the 11th, and including the 11th, we've had probably almost 9 hours of public presentation and public discussion of this plan since you last saw it.
And very happy to have you join us again, President Vivel. Would you like to make a few comments?
No, I think I'm ready to just answer whatever questions you have. Perhaps the only comment I would make is that I've been very excited to be able to participate in these sort of formal hearings over the last 3 weeks or so. I've often made jokes about the Portland process, but it's kind of fun to see it up close. And I was very pleased that I think we're able to answer really all or most of the questions and concerns that people have, and really see a lot of support. As always, there are always people who want to talk longer, and I appreciate that. I'm seated often with our faculty. People always want to talk longer, but I feel pretty good about the process. Thank you.
Well, you can come back after you've been through it about 20 times and tell us how much you enjoy it.
I have a great deal of respect for you all.
Now, I don't have any comment cards. Do we have any public comment from anyone in the audience? No. Well, I will just make a few comments, and I'll open it up to Commissioner Dixon and Chair Andrews. I believe you can make comments, can't you? Okay. This is kind of change of power, so I'm enjoying this. It's feeling pretty good. I spoke last meeting when the presentation was made regarding this urban renewal area, and we've just had a lot of public comment about PDC's budget. And the issue typically boils down to allocation of resources. Everyone would like to have everything. We as PDC, you as Portland State would love to have enough resources to do everything that everyone wants to do, but unfortunately we can't. And I made the public statement that when I look at PSU and consider its role as a downtown university, the expansion of PSU, the future that PSU offers to students and the workforce and the community in general, I don't see how we can't make every investment in PSU that we possibly can that we feel is rational. And that's just the perspective I take. And sitting as the board chair of OHSU, I take a similar perspective, because when you educate the population, and I'm sure President Vivel has seen and can present a lot of statistics on this, the higher the education level of a community, typically the better the economy and the more resources we have to invest in all of these things that people want. So the challenge boils down to resource allocation. Personally, I think it's a very good allocation of resources. We've considered the county's perspective. We've considered Portland Public Schools. We've had involvement all along the way. Keith, you mentioned the 9 hours of discussion and comment since our last meeting on this very topic. It's hard not to conclude that the time to make an investment is when you have the opportunity after you've considered the alternatives and the impacts. And I think the positive impact relating to this potential investment is so significant that we can hardly not afford to do it, if that's proper grammar. But the other issue is, having been on this commission for 6 years, we hear about the Bud Clark Commons, and we would receive equal pressure from different members of the community saying you can't afford to make that type of investment in a nonprofit, non-economic generating investment. And we have to say we look at all the investments and the value that they bring to the city of Portland, and we weigh that evidence at the time we're considering it, and we make the investment based on a weighing of that evidence. So we're here looking at a similar opportunity. We're considering creating a new urban renewal area, and we know, I think, at this point why we would do that. And once again, we've had plenty of feedback and input from parties who are affected, And I think it's, once again, an opportunity we can't afford to delay, because delay usually results in lost opportunity. So that's my perspective. And Commissioner Dixon, any comments you'd like to make?
Well, goodness, after that, I don't know what else there is to say. I am really happy to hear that you guys have been extremely busy since the last meeting. Obviously, you've attended a lot of meetings and received further public feedback, and it sounds like, of course, like you said, there's people that like to talk longer, but that overall there is a lot of support. I really like to second what Commissioner Wilhoit stated, which is that the decisions that we make add value to the city. And as I stated when you came previously, I really believe that this is going to add a lot of value to our city. And the fact that it is an education URA makes it very clear that it's going to add value to the future of the city and to so many people that will be able to benefit from this decision that we're starting. We're not making, but we're starting to send this to City Council. So my only question is in regards still to the Portland Public School portion, and just if you could, Keith, explain in particular the Lincoln site and how that is not the only target for our plans for the Portland Public Schools.
Sure, and the way that we've been describing that site, and it's accurate, is it's basically an 11-acre site that's owned by Portland Public Schools in Goose Hollow. We've talked with officials at PPS, and they've said pretty clearly that in order to renovate Lincoln, it's upwards of $85 million. And I think that what our $10 million is going to do is be able to take what right now is, there's a couple 100,000 square feet in development on the site, and it's got the capacity for about 1.7 million. And in order to do that, there's going to be a lot of work that's going to have to happen, whether it's your typical pre-development stuff in terms of looking at soils, if they're going to redevelop it, which I think they're hoped to generate some, with a private developer, to generate some resources for the school district, that there's going to need to be infrastructure improvements directly tied to the site for access, for a number of things that would kind of assume a much higher level of density and more use. It's not for the high school.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah. We're going to save you for last since you're the chair. Commissioner Molis, would you like to make any comments?
Well, thank you. And it sounds like my voice is bouncing off the speaker, which probably makes me sound more obnoxious than usual. So I'm going to keep it very brief. And I'll second all your comments, Charles. I think you wrapped it up very well. And as I said in the last meeting, I think it's the right thing to do in the right place at the right time. So I'm in favor of it. I want to vote yes and move it forward. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, too, from long distance, but don't go anywhere yet. We have to have an official vote.
Okay.
Chair Andrews.
So two broad topics that I wanted to talk about. First was over the public participation and feedback, because we did get some feedback from the public last time that they thought we were moving a little bit too fast. I would point out that this process started in May of 2009 with an evaluation of what was going to be a much larger district, and there were many meetings looking at that and coming to the conclusion that a smaller one made more sense in this particular economic time. Just from November 2011 to currently, there were 11 different task forces, committees, events, opportunities for people to participate. And so I'm comfortable that people have had an opportunity to participate when and where they wanted to. The second is, it's really kind of fun to see this thing come full circle, because in my time on the Association for Portland Progress Board and then the PBA Board, there was just the beginning of an understanding of how important Portland State University is to the health of the city as well as the region. And it's taken, I'd say, 7 or 8 years for it to go from just kind of an initial, it's more than just a place for folks to go to school. It's actually an economic engine. It's a driver. And other very successful cities have successful universities and successful research universities. And there's been a lot of collaboration, a lot of work over the last couple of years in terms of agreements with the city. And this is another big step. It's the first time and the only way that I see that the city has the opportunity to provide some real financial resources to put some money where we have been talking about the importance of. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the leverage that we've talked about, that there's all sorts of opportunities at the university level to create funds by starting with some seed funds. The list of projects is impressive, and I'm looking forward to seeing the university grow. And this is going to be a big piece of that.
Yeah, I agree. It's growing at a rate now. It's catching up to that. What's that institution in Arizona State? What's that?
I'll say those comments mean a lot coming from a duck. Thank you.
No, all good comments, and once again, the process is important. We all often find ourselves poking a little fun at the process, but the process is critical, and I think we've, as Chair Andrews stated, gone through a very thorough process and have arrived at a very good point right now to make a decision. So with that, I would ask for a motion for Resolution 6935 to have a movement for approval.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a first and second. Any discussion? No. If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. And any opposed? No. So thanks for all the effort, all the work. Look forward to the expansion in that area and all the things that come out of it. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us, President.
Thank you very much.
You can take the rest of the day off.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Does this mean I have to give up the chair now?
You want it?
Yeah. No. I turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you. Nicely done.
Yeah.
Thanks. Commissioner Mullis. Nope. We're good.
Very good. All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you. So I know we were looking for some folks to testify on the intergovernmental agreement with Portland Public Schools. I don't know if they're here.
Do we just want to wait?
Is everybody here?
5:10 or what? I don't know.
Let me see this. Sarah stepped out for a minute as well. Okay. Well, looks like we're going to go on break for at least 10 minutes again, and we'll try to organize folks as quickly as we can. Thanks for your patience. We were not sure of the level of public participation tonight, and so we wanted to make sure that there was enough space to get everything done, and we overscheduled this time.
So you're too efficient.
We'll adjourn until 5 o'clock.
Yep.
We are on, looking at the old one, I think it's probably item 9 on the new one. It is Resolution 6941, authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with Portland Public Schools for $600,000 for construction of Jefferson High School frontage improvements. Sarah King, Denise McGriff.
Is this on? There we go.
There you go.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Director Quinton. My name is Sarah King. I'm the Development Manager for the Lentz Gateway and Interstate Urban Renewal Areas. With me is Senior Project Manager Denise McGriff. We're here today to request authorization to execute an intergovernmental agreement in the amount of not to exceed $600,000 for frontage improvements to Jefferson High School. Our intergovernmental agreement is with the Portland Public School District. These improvements are, Jefferson High School is located on Northeast Killingsworth Street in the Interstate Corridor Urban Renewal Area. This project, initiated by the community, has been in the works for 10 years, and we are excited to be on the brink of construction. Although started prior to the adoption of the Neighborhood Economic Development Strategy, this project dovetails nicely with that strategy for 3 reasons. First, this project is a partnership with Portland Public Schools for physical improvements which benefit Jefferson, the Killingsworth Commercial Street, and the Humboldt neighborhood. Second, this improvement will occur on one of PDC's priority commercial corridors, which is one which has faced lagging investment. Many of the businesses on this corridor are minority owned and serve a diverse customer base. Right now, the football field and chain link fence around it act as a barrier between the commercial areas on either side of Jefferson. These frontage improvements will provide a positive pedestrian experience which will act as a bridge for the businesses on either side of the school. Third, because PDC is undertaking the improvements itself, we can control the contracting and can ensure that we meet or exceed our social equity goals.
As Sarah said, the project began about 10 years ago with an idea by Jefferson alum and Humboldt neighborhood resident, the late Carl Flipper. He was active in the neighborhood association. He served on the Interstate Urban Renewal Advisory Committee and was chapter president of the NAACP, to name a few of his many, many activities. His vision was to beautify the neighborhood street frontages one at a time. And his idea basically was to take Jefferson and improve the frontage of it along with the Killingsworth streetscape improvements that were in process at the time. He enlisted the help of PDC, Portland Public Schools, the Neighborhood Association, Multnomah County Library staff, and the adjacent businesses to participate. In addition to the benefits that Sarah previously mentioned, there are 2 I'd like to specifically call out. One, as you can see in the picture, the Killingsworth streetscape improvements. The first phase was completed from Interstate Avenue to Commercial Avenue, just east of our project site. And phase 2, which will be constructed next year, will go from Commercial Avenue to Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. And second, PDC staff will be putting together an outreach plan to notify the community about contracting opportunities for this particular project. The project site, highlighted in red, is shown between the track and the sidewalk along the Killingsworth frontage of Jefferson High School. Some key elements that I want to point out to you are, number 1, shown here in A, is the undulating landscape retaining wall. This is a profile of that here in E. C is the iron fencing, and D, this is the plaza that will allow for Jefferson students to access Killingsworth Street and catch the bus, which would be right over here. This is an illustration of the proposed improvements if you were standing on the northwest corner of Killingsworth and Kirby Street. You can see the elements that I just mentioned. Many thanks go to our project partners, those who helped create the plan, the Interstate Urban Renewal Advisory Committee, members of the community who basically kept this project alive since 2002. PDC's consultant team, Carlton Hart Architecture, Lando and Associates Landscape Architects, led the project advisory team. Next steps. We're looking at design, survey, and geotechnical work to start next month, followed by permitting, bidding, and contractor selection this summer. I also want to bring to your attention that we received a letter from one of our project advisory committee members, and I'd like to have that entered into the record. Do we have that? I also want to mention to you that several of our project partners are here this afternoon to be introduced to you. First of all, Ed Brune, who's the PPS Jefferson Project Manager. Tony Maglione, who is the Facilities Director for Portland Public Schools. Brian Murtaugh, who is the chair of the Land Use Chair of the Humboldt Neighborhood Association. And finally, Margaret Calvert, Principal of Jefferson High School. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, Brian Murtaugh and Margaret Calvert have signed up to provide testimony, so why don't we have them come forward before we provide feedback? Thanks for being here today, and thanks for being flexible with the time.
Go ahead. I'll go first. Good afternoon. My name is Brian Murtaugh. I've lived in the Humboldt neighborhood for 11 years, and since October of 2008, I've been a board member of the Humboldt Neighborhood Association and have served as the land use chair in that area. I'm here to voice my support for the PDC-sponsored Jefferson High School frontage project. Improving the North Killingsworth-Jefferson campus edge has been a long priority of the neighborhood, as Denise mentioned. There have been numerous resident-driven projects, some that have gone to fruition, like taking down the hedges that had been up there, was volunteer-based. And then, of course, the Carl Flipper, Bill Hart, Jefferson Pavilion, has the lineage of this project that we're here today to see. But most of those have run into financial barriers. I think your authorization of the agreement with Portland Public Schools today would help make a major step in seeing some realization of this project. I'd also like to commend Denise McGriff on the advisory committee that she was able to set up. She really was able to get a very diverse group of neighbor residents. The library was there, the neighborhood association, school members, alumni association, people have a vested interest in that area. And I think that the process and the decisions that were made in that were visualized by Carlton Hart Architects really do give a community-based project. We're drawing lines from the library and able to really feel some security and safety in that area that we hope will enhance the business district as it grows over the years. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Margaret Calvert, and I'm the principal at Jefferson High School Middle College for Advanced Studies. I come here today to voice my support for this project as well, and it represents an ongoing expansion of partnerships and deepening of work that we've been doing in the neighborhood that is epitomized by the reason that I was purposely stated that we're the Middle College for Advanced Studies, which shows and builds on our relationship with PCC. This project presents an opportunity for there to be development really truly of an urban educational zone similar to what you're seeing and talking about with PSU. And what we have done is we've deepened our partnership with PCC, and many of our students now are walking across the street to take part in college-level classes there. We've also deepened our partnership with other community organizations such as Self-Enhancement Incorporated, with the ultimate goal to support student learning and to provide rich experiences for students across the city, but particularly from the neighborhood. What we have seen over the last year is an investment both in time and energy by community partners, PCC, and now hopefully the city and the Development Commission. When I've worked extensively with PCC, one of the things that has come through is that the
other partners such as U of O, PSU, OSU, Warner Pacific University have stepped forward to say that they believe that this educational project will lead and pay great dividends, so much so that they're willing to invest money in scholarships. When we look at what investment means for our students, this is another piece of putting that puzzle together. And as I talked with some students today about what the possibilities were and what it would look like and how it would feel, the clear message that they're receiving from so many different organizations is that people are investing in them. And they see that as hopeful and as a mechanism to develop both intellectually and educationally. And ultimately, that people are giving back to the neighborhood from which they are coming. It's a great opportunity. It's been a long time in discussion, and I appreciate the chance to come and speak in favor and support of this project and see something really that's been a dream for so many come to fruition. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Denise, Sarah? Well, it has been a long time coming, and it's great to see that everything has come together so that we can move it forward. I had the opportunity to co-chair the downtown retail strategy with the mayor, and one of the things that we learned early in that process was that when you have a gap in a business district, when you've got a vacancy, it creates a barrier. And in here, I think you're looking at 150 feet, at least, I'm going to guess. And so what happens is people walk down the street, and then they look at this big hole, and they turn around and go the other way. So you end up with two little districts instead of one connected district with all of the leverage that comes along with it. So, I mean, in addition to all of the good things that have been testified about, the investment in the school, the investment in the neighborhood, the safety aspects, I think it will have a real great effect on the businesses on both sides, especially as we finish the second piece of the streetscape. So I think it's a great project.
Mr. Chair, may I take a moment and introduce Bill Hart from Carlton Hart Architects?
Sure.
He's here in the audience. Bill, raise your hand or stand up.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Great looking project. Yeah. Commissioner Dixon?
I would second what you said. Again, this is exciting for me to be on it. Obviously, it's been 10 years in the making, and I've only been here for a couple, and I get to reap the benefits of being a part of something this exciting. I just want to give thanks to all the people. It sounds like it's been a long project in the making, and to all those people that have really pushed for this project to happen. And the fact that, you know, it's moving forward is wonderful. It's nice that we can do something for Portland Public Schools, but more importantly that this is, you know, helping a neighborhood that really needs some improvement and supporting the business districts that are there. I think that's a really good point to why this project is so important for us here at the Portland Development Commission today. So thank you guys for all your hard work, and Bill Hart for his work as well on this project.
Charles?
And I won't add too much, and I have a question or two. I think more than anything, given the challenges that Jefferson High School has faced over the years, this is a very strong statement about the value of that school existing and something that the students in that school can take a lot of pride in. It is a statement of investment in the area and investment in the school, and it's also positive with regard to the economic impact it exerts on that thoroughfare. So I'm all in favor of it as well. And the question is, well, the two questions. Has it taken this long because we've had to get together and come to a plan as far as a community agreeing on what to do and how to get there? Because when you hear something like this taking 10 years and you say, well, it's a $600,000 investment, I'm just curious how we've taken a while to get here.
Well, actually, the agreement by the community was the easiest part of the process. Our fearless leader, as you know, passed away.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where some of the momentum got lost. Carl was really sort of the heart and soul of the project, and people took time to regroup after his passing in, was 2006? So we got back on board.
Okay, just curious. And the other, the design that we saw on the screen, is that kind of the plan we're working towards?
The profile?
Yes, because it has brick, and maybe a silly question, but one I'll ask nonetheless. When you look at the brick and you see the writing on it, I'm assuming that because it's on such a busy thoroughfare, there's not a lot of concern about graffiti?
Well, we did talk about that as part of the committee process, and the materials will be graffiti coated so that we can prevent any incidents, and we hope that people won't. Sarah, can you go to the
and it looks very attractive, and I understand the appeal. If you have wrought iron and it's we don't want our kids to think they're in prison. It's a nice design to put some brick in there, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, on the top there, again, this is, well, I guess it'll be about that high, but there will be wrought iron fencing, and we're going to use the same style that's existing on the property line with Multnomah County Library.
Okay.
So we'll continue that on across on a shorter portion on top of the wall, and then as we come around the corner, there'll be a regular fence there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's like, be on this, let's see, is it on? On this elevation right here. So this is going down Kirby, and then this is the shorter profile, but that'll be on top of the wall.
Closer on the street.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, thanks. That's all I have. And once again, very much in support of the project, and it will do a lot to close the gap that Chair Andrews and we could all see on the screen, and it will be very noticeable. So I think it's going to be a very positive improvement to the community. Thanks for your work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for your work. Thank you for the presentation. I would look for a motion to approve Resolution 6941, authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with Portland Public Schools for $600,000 for construction of Jefferson High School frontage improvements.
So moved.
Seconded.
Further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks again. Okay, on to item 10, Resolution 6942, endorsing Metro's request for proposals process for a convention center hotel and authorizing the executive director to enter into direct negotiations with the selected developer. Lou Bowers, Eric Jacobson. Hello.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Lou Bowers. I work with you on the Central City. I'm going to make a few introductory remarks, and then we'll turn over the presentation. As you all are very aware, it has been a long-standing goal of PDC to bring more conventions and better utilize the convention center by having an appropriately sized hotel adjacent to the convention center. We've tried this several times in the past with limited to no success. But recently the process has been reinvigorated by President Hughes of Metro, and he has been working on coordinating with the various governmental bodies and has been asked for PDC's support in this effort. So we have been working with Metro as they've attempted to coordinate between the county, the city, and PDC to create a good, solid political coalition to proceed. You will be talking about that process today and opining on whether PDC should proceed with the RFP. This will be the first of several opportunities that you will have to weigh in on this project prior to any legally binding commitment. So at this point, I want to turn over to Eric Jacobson, who is the project manager, and Cheryl Tweedy, who is here representing Metro.
Good afternoon, Chair Andrews and Commissioners. My name is Eric Jacobson, Senior Project Manager here with the Central City team. And we're here today to ask that you approve Resolution 6942. And that resolution endorses Metro's request for proposal process to solicit proposals for a privately owned convention center hotel, and also authorizes the executive director to enter into exclusive negotiations with the selected developer for disposition of Block 26 and the southern half of Block 43, which are PDC-owned properties. So just to give you a little bit of orientation in terms of where we're talking about, you can see there's the convention center and right next to I-5. The research that's being conducted has shown that a convention center hotel needs to be located immediately adjacent to the convention center. And so that's the area outlined in red there that Metro is looking for proposals for either publicly or privately owned properties in that area. And within that area, there are 4 publicly owned sites, and PDC has ownership interest in 2 of those, which are sites 1 and 3. You'll notice that at the northeast corner of MLK and Holiday, there's the inn at the convention center. That's not part of the study right now, as we've initiated a solicitation and discussions with the developer for that renovation of that hotel separately.
Good afternoon, Cheryl Tweedy, Senior Development Advisor with Metro. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about what the public goals and the benefits of a convention center hotel would be. Many of us have worked on this idea for a long time, some of us longer than we like to recall, but we think that this time we have found a formula that can hopefully get us over the finish line and result in a very substantial hotel being built in this district. Obviously, the PDC is very well aware of the urban renewal plan for the area, and it calls for the headquarter hotel as its #1 goal within this district. We also want to talk a little bit about the economic development benefits of the convention center and what a headquarter hotel or convention hotel would be able to bring to the area. Last year alone, OCC had more than $450 million of direct economic impact in the region and in the state. Of that, $261 million was direct spending related to the convention center itself. More than 4,000 jobs were created and established, and more than $15 million of revenues went to local and state governments. The goal of bringing in a convention hotel really is one to try to move the needle and bring more conventions into our community. Back in the 2000s, when PDC and Metro were both working on the headquarter hotel project, we did a number of different market studies, and what we were told by the national experts is that we could expect to achieve at least 8 more major national conventions a year if we had an appropriately sized convention center hotel adjacent to the convention center itself. So that is our goal. Our goal is to move the needle and to bring more conventions and more direct spending into the community. We also believe that all of the hospitality industry will benefit from a new convention hotel. We're not trying to create a hotel and take away room nights from existing hotels. We want to grow the market so that there's a net increase in overall room nights in our community. Other goals we have for the project, obviously, are to enhance the front door of the convention center. It's a little less than desirable today. I think the area and the property owners have largely been in a holding pattern waiting for this first big investment to happen. We anticipate that other property owners in the district will follow suit and redevelop their properties once this convention hotel can get underway. Obviously, the RFP will have a number of different social equity goals. We anticipate working with PDC's green building policy and PDC's business and workforce equity goals in the RFP. Metro has some similar policies, but yours are perhaps a little stricter, and because we want to have the respondents just address one package of those policies, we're very comfortable working with PDC's policies. And lastly, obviously, the streetcar will be opening later this year, and we think that's a wonderful amenity for convention goers and businesses in this district. So we think that by creating a convention hotel and spurring on additional area development will actually bring additional ridership to the streetcar as well. Quick overview of the process. We, under the leadership of President Hughes at Metro, have been spending the last 4 months trying to build jurisdictional partnership with the city, Multnomah County, Metro Council, and of course PDC. Thank you very much for your time, your energies, your staff time and commitment to date. On April 13th, a statement of principles was executed among those 4 jurisdictions, which basically called for the issuance of an RFP to try to move forward this project concept. And ultimately, this next phase will end with the selection of a preferred development team by both the Portland Development Commission as well as Metro. Phase 3, which will pick up in August of this year and actually go for 12 to 18 months, will result in the execution of development and financing agreements by the end of this calendar year, more pre-development planning the following year, and hopefully construction start by the end of 2013 with an opening by summer 2015.
So one of the key takeaways to take away from this graphic also is that you will see this item 3 times. Today is the first, right here at the end of Phase 1, beginning of Phase 2. We think we'll bring it back to you at the end of Phase 2 when we have selection of a development team. And then also at the end of Phase 3 when we have negotiated a development agreement that would also be subject to approval of the PDC board. So I just want to quickly talk about the chronology. It's been mentioned that this has been a topic of our efforts for many years, so I just wanted to quickly run over where we've been and where we're going with this. So the idea of a convention center hotel originated with the adoption of the URA plan in 1989. PDC acquired the properties at Block 23 and 26 and 43 specifically for the purpose of developing the convention center hotel. Between 2004 and 2009, there was one effort, but really there were sort of 2 separate efforts. Between 2004 and 2007, there was a PDC-led effort, and the focus there was on a privately owned, privately operated hotel. When that was determined to not be feasible, Metro took the lead between 2007 and 2009. At that time, the focus was on a publicly owned but privately operated hotel. There was an effort in 2010 where Starterra, who are property owners directly north of the convention center, looked at the feasibility of a privately owned convention center hotel. And then in sort of orange outlined here is where we are today. We expect this phase of the effort to take about a year, either year of 2012, and we're hoping to have a development team selected by the end of the year, and then we would look for pre-construction activities to occur in 2013 and construction to occur in 2014 and 2015. So this is a more detailed version of this chart in your packet, but I just wanted to run over what are some of the similarities or differences between what we looked at previously and what we're looking at today. So starting at the top, as I mentioned previously, the agency leadership began with PDC and then transitioned to Metro. And today in our effort, Metro is the lead agency with the city, county, and PDC as partner agencies. The program requirements have changed over the years in terms of what is a headquarter or convention center hotel. But generally, in the prior effort, the requirements were fairly specific and fairly strict. For example, there was a minimum requirement of 600 rooms and a requirement that the hotel could be expanded to accommodate 800 rooms. Now the approach we're taking is a little bit more flexibility and less specific in terms of the program. In terms of the location, most of the effort last time was focused on PDC-owned blocks 43 and 26, and this time we're starting with a wider range of both publicly and privately owned properties that may be potential sites for the hotel. The total development cost, previously at the last round of cost estimates, the cost of the hotel was approximately $197.5 million. Obviously, we're at the beginning phase of this effort. We don't know what the costs are, but we're thinking they're going to be lower because our program requirements are less specific. As I mentioned, the ownership and operation, before we looked at a privately owned, privately operated model, and then later a publicly owned, privately operated model. And now the RFP is specifying that we're only going to be looking at a privately owned, privately operated model. And in terms of the context, towards the end of the headquarters hotel process last time, there was a fair amount of disagreement over whether or not there should be a publicly owned hotel. There was lack of consensus amongst the partner agencies on the amount and type of funding to provide to it. And also at the end of, as 2008 and 2009 approached, that was the beginning of the recession, and that's when financing began to dry up and the project was put on hold. Contrast that today, the 4 local partners have signed the statement of principles. When you look at the hotel market, the room rates and occupancy rates are all showing signs of improvement. Construction costs and interest rates are down, and financing is more readily available today than it was several years ago. So we feel like these signs indicate a greater likelihood of success going forward. In terms of the potential PDC investment, I just wanted to mention that there are 2 components of PDC's investment. One is land and one is potential financing. In terms of the land, PDC owns
3 parcels in the vicinity of the convention center. The Block 47 parcel, which is combined with the Star Terra property as a potential site for a convention hotel. And then, as I previously mentioned, the southern half of Block 43 and Block 26. We expect to make those properties available to a developer should they express interest in those properties, and we expect to make them available at fair market value. And then in terms of potential financing, PDC has $4 million in our requested budget that could be made available at terms to be negotiated. So the RFP is, Cheryl's currently drafting that. It's not finished, but we can give you some of the highlights of what is included in it. We expect it to be issued in early May, and we anticipate that the PDC Executive Director would approve the terms and conditions of that RFP. The submittals would be due in about mid-June, so we think it'll be open for about 5 weeks or so. In terms of the evaluation criteria, we would be looking at the capability of the development team, their quality of their proposal, whether or not their economic package seems feasible and minimizes the need for public investment, and then the ability and willingness to achieve the public policy goals such as business and workforce equity and green building policy. Metro will establish an advisory panel that will evaluate the proposals, and all 4 of the local government partners will have a member on that advisory panel, and that panel will make a recommendation both to the Metro Council and to the PDC Board, which we expect to bring to you in about July. So in terms of next steps, we're right there at the beginning of Phase 2. Last week, the Metro Council did take action directing staff to issue the RFP. Today, we're asking you to endorse that process. We expect the selection of the development team to take through about July, at which point we'd bring this back to you for your review and approval of that development team. And then we would look for the negotiation of a development agreement to take the better part of the rest of this year. And with that, that concludes our presentation. Just a summary, we're here to ask that you approve Resolution 6942, and we're prepared to take any questions you may have.
Great, thank you. This reminds me that the old adage in the development business that is, you know, the bigger and better the project, the more times it dies a spectacular death. But you never give up on the good ones. It also reminds me a lot of the Myron Frank redevelopment. I followed that for 15 years, and there were many attempts at figuring out how it could be redeveloped. Everybody understood how important that structure is to the central downtown. I think everybody understands how important this is. It's just been a matter of finding the right way to get it done. And Cheryl, we've been through it so many times. We can show you where the potholes that you can drive buses into in this process. So I'm sure you have learned by that. I'm really comfortable with it, especially at this stage of the game. We're basically saying, yeah, we think it's a great idea to move forward, and our property is in play. The $4 million has been in the OCC budget. As long as I can remember, it's actually less than it was at one point, so it's all set aside. Before I turn it over, I will recognize that there was a minor change to the board resolution that was given to you as we sat down, and that it's all in the second to last paragraph, and it just provides now that the executive director has to approve the terms and conditions of the Metro RFP before he's authorized to enter into the direct negotiations. The new part is that the executive director approves the terms and conditions of the RFP, which makes an awful lot of sense, obviously, and I don't think there's any pushback on it. But with that, Commissioner Dixon, do you have?
Well, I am happy to hear that there's more projects. I thought 10 years was a long time, and obviously we're going on 23 years or so. So we're an equal opportunity agency in terms of the big and small projects. They can all take time, and that's good to hear. I think that this is a really important initiative, and I am completely in agreement with going forward to looking at selecting a developer or issuing this RFP, and that we have 3 more shots to hear more and see how it's developing through the next 3 times we get to hear from you guys. So thank you.
Sure, and I would second the comments already made. First of all, Cheryl, very good to see you in front of us again.
You too, thank you.
Look forward to hearing, and I should say reading the proposal that comes forward. And I think everyone in the city would agree that we are long overdue with regard to a convention center hotel. And I think the hang-up in the past has been some concern about what impact that hotel might have on the marketplace if it wasn't established and operated in a structure that was conducive to competitive forces in play in the market. So I think we've taken the approach to address that, having a privately owned, privately operated facility. So I look forward to the proposal that comes forward. And I just want to be clear as far as PDC's investment. I think I stated before at a prior meeting that was one of the first items that was on an agenda when I came to PDC, and I found myself voting to transfer it over to Metro. So it's still here and going strong again. But as far as PDC's investment, we have $4 million in the budget. We're also looking at contributing the land to that particular activity, aren't we, Patrick?
Yeah, we are. And both of those, both the land and the dollars that have been budgeted, we've left it to be negotiated. So the terms under which those will be contributed to the project are, we still have to figure that out. Be established.
And that will come back to us. We're
right.
just, as Chair Andrews indicated, voting to say, yes, let's definitely take every step we can to consider all alternatives to getting a convention center hotel in place, and I'm all in favor of that.
Yeah, on the point of some of the pushback in terms of worrying about the marketplace, I understand that Len Bergstein actually testified for this form, which is a big movement there. That's a good sign that it's the right kind of development. Yeah.
Maybe a slight clarification. He testified in support of the RFP process. So he was looking forward to seeing what those proposals would actually be.
Minor detail.
It was positive.
That's right. It was positive.
But we'll keep the line of conversation very much open with hoteliers so they understand what's happening and hopefully can be comfortable with the proposals going forward.
Great. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Thanks for the presentation. So I would look for a motion to approve Resolution 6942 endorsing Metro's request for proposals, process for a convention center hotel, and authorizing Executive Director to enter into direct negotiations with the selected developer.
Well, having been here the longest with this one, I'll make that motion.
I will second it.
Since you're the only person here. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thanks for a great report.
Thanks.
Very thorough. And with no other items on the agenda, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
I was kind of liking being the chair again. I don't know.
You want to be chair?